Welcome to the Aquarian Shaman Broadcast. I'm Star Wolf, your shamanic host, and I'm here to teach you how to transform yourself and transform the world. Twice a month, we'll be exploring how to develop shamanic psycho-spiritual practices to support transformation while expanding your energy field in a way that can also support others. Each episode offers dynamic experiential guidance and teachings on how to safely enter a natural altered state of consciousness using the sacred breath. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of integration and grounding this medicine into your everyday life. Stay tuned. We're about to create authentic embodied change that will surely grow corn for the future generations. Welcome everyone to Transformation Network and to the Aquarian Shaman Podcast. And today I have an amazing guest here and a soul brother, a shamanic soul brother, Tom Blue Wolf, who I'll be introducing to you in just a moment. We always begin our time with doing a little bit of smudging. In the very first episode, I did a very big smudge and spent basically the whole time explaining and calling in what we were doing for people who might not understand, calling in directions and what that means, calling in the elements, and honoring the 7 directions. And so that portal, if you will, is open for our entire year together. But each time we come together, I send you a little bit of smudge, a little bit of smoke, sacred smoke. And it can be many different herbs, but this is some beautiful sage, which is a traditional herb that's used for healing and cleansing and just kind of clearing the air. Sometimes we say, I just want to clear the air. So sometimes, especially if I've been on social media too much, if I'm watching too much politics and I find myself getting I'm out of balance, I just go outside, stand on my deck with my wolf dogs, howl at the moon a little bit and burn some sage. So whatever, as my grandmother used to say, floats your boat. So sending some of this smudge to you. And I always like to acknowledge the medicine that I'm using, a beautiful shell that was given to me a long time ago. Some beautiful sage from over here in Cherokee where I live next door to. And a beautiful swan that died naturally. And that was given to me by a woman who creates beautiful things like this from Iceland. So when the sage comes to you, it's an opportunity for you to, and the smoke comes to you, to take your prayers for yourself, your prayers for your loved ones, your prayers for your country, your prayers for your enemies, your prayers for the world, and to place all those prayers into the smoke, and then to let it go. And as grandmother Twyla Nitch, a Seneca Wolf Clan grandmother, my adopted grandmother, would say, now you've given it to great mystery, and it's up to you now to walk the path and do what it is that's yours to do. But let go of the worry, or you will become weary. Let go of the worry now, or you will become weary. You must keep a good attitude, and you must walk a path that understands that before things can be rebirthed and born, they must die. Like transformation is death. Some people say, oh, I want to transform, but they don't realize that transformation means a conscious death of old parts of ourselves, old negative attitudes, belief systems, whether that's individual or in your family of origin, in your shadows, or in global awareness and consciousness. It feels to me that our whole world, whether it looks like it or not right now, is going through a huge initiation to decide how we're going to deal with our shadows. And if we don't, those shadows are going to deal with us, and how we're going to find our way through to another level of consciousness. So that's why I'm here every couple of weeks with you all. But I feel like sometimes the most fortunate person in the world, because I happen to somehow have discovered some of the most amazing people I feel on the planet at this time. People that are not just, and there's nothing wrong with this, but not just influencers and that sort of thing, but people who have been on this path for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. The elders, the true elders, the wisdom keepers, the ones who have dedicated their entire lives almost, their adult lives, of carrying medicine for the people. And that medicine, it could be herbs, it could be plants, it could be medicine that you take orally. But the medicine that I'm really talking about is the medicine of transformation, of enlightening conversations, awarenesses of our character defects, if you will, our shadows that we must own instead of projecting onto others, and growing ourselves up. And these shamans all around the world, and whether you call them shamans, healers, medicine men, medicine women, teachers, spiritual teachers, whatever you want to call them, maybe you have a really great therapist, whatever. These people are the people who are helping us grow up, step into who it is we are with our own soul's purpose, and to help transform our world. It's not up to other people to do it. Tag, as Grandmother Twyla used to say of the Wolf Clan, Seneca, tag Star Wolf when she would tickle me. Tag, you're it. So with that, I'll come to Tom Blue Wolf, and I would like to introduce him formally to you. And it would take so long, quite honestly, to tell you everything there is to say about this man. But I'm going to give it a shot here a little bit to see what I can say. Okay, come over here. Tom. See if it comes up now. It did a while ago. Here we go. Yes, perfect. There it is. Okay. Technology, huh? Tom Blue Wolf is founder and director of Earth Keepers One Tribe Trading Company, an organization dedicated to manufacturing and distributing herbal healing products and educating people of all ages on the importance of relationship with the earth and each other. He is a charter member of the World Council of Elders, a faith keeper and pipe carrier for the Star Clan of the Lower Creek, a lifetime member of the Indigenous Healers Association, travels the world teaching workshops and conducting ceremonies in the tradition of the Star Clan of the Anikusa. He leads an Indigenous cultural awareness program for incarcerated brothers in the Federal Bureau of Prisons and inspires many hearts with the messages of peace and harmony with all our relations. Really want to offer a deep bow to that, brother. That really touches me. He has appeared on many radio and television programs and was recently featured in the award-winning documentary Mythic Journeys, produced by the Mythic Imagination Institute. Tom has written hundreds of articles to present the views of the Earth Keepers organization and has received numerous awards and acknowledgments for his work with Earth Keepers for over the past 44 years, and that's dedication. His recent book, The Great Remembering, will be available, so we might want to write this down. The Great Remembering will be available October 6th of this year, 2025. He is a deep ecology artist whose earthwalk continues to evoke balanced relationship with nature. He is considered by the Elders Council to be a spokesperson for Mother Earth and her children. He was born in southern Alabama, raised and taught in the traditional ways by his Greek grandparents. Tom's tribal affiliation is through the Little Bear family, with the Afala Band of the Star Clan with the Eastern Lower Creek tribe of the Muskogee Nation. Welcome, Tom Blue Wolf, and thank you for everything that you've brought to this world so far and all that is yet to come. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Boy, that was a mouthful, huh?
Well, Tom, when you've lived as long as we have. I mean, I'll be 73 this year, and I've been at this for 40 something years as well. And when you've lived as long as we have and you've been dedicated to this work, a bio is a bio, it's a book.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's. I actually started Earth Keepers in 1970.
Wow, that's
Yeah, when I
amazing.
got back from Vietnam in '69, I thought to myself, I don't want anybody to experience what I just experienced.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's where the wounded healer uh, comes to play, isn't it?
yeah. Well, yeah, and then it turns into just this incredible love affair where, love is the healer and forgiveness continues to be the medicine.
Yeah. It really does come down to love and forgiveness, doesn't it? No matter what the issue is.
Seems to. Sometimes the medicine is not easy to take, but it's necessary, you know, for our own well-being. What I've noticed is that when we forgive somebody, it actually helps us more than them. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking into that. 43 years ago, I stepped into the rooms, if there's people say, the 12-step program for recovery from my own addiction at 29 years old.
Mm,
And one of the first, and I'm thinking, I had a thought about what that would be. But one of the biggest parts of the program was about forgiving other people, not
mm.
only forgiving ourselves for anything we may have mistook, but forgiving others. And I found that I balked at that somewhat with a couple of people. And my sponsors at the time said, "You will not be free until they're fine, but that you will not be free until you can find forgiveness."
You know what I linked it with, and it became incredibly fascinating was astrophysics. When we realized that this Earth is rotating about 1,100 miles an hour, and we're following a dwarf star through space at about 68,000 miles an hour. We go over 1 million miles through space every 24 hours. Why would you want to hang on to anything that would make you feel less than extraordinarily precious and joyous on this incredible cosmic ride? And so what it did for me was it took me out of this linear timeline of 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and put me into the duration timeline of nature. Trees might live 10, 15, 20 years, but they might live 5, 10,000 years, depending on how much they're willing to contribute and give back into nature. So it's a duration rather than a timeline. You can endure as long as you're giving. And so I really enjoy that. And so I'm kind of like learning now from the tree people.
It's so true. I have a real affinity with trees too. I mean, I feel like it that in some ways I was an only child and lived out in the country and grew up on my grandparents' farm. And my chickens and my trees, I call them mine because I belong to them. They belong to me. The willow tree, the oak tree that I climbed in was my horse and I had a rope around it, the branch that I sat on, those kinds of things. They were my people, you know. My, I belong, when I say my, I belong to them as much as they belong to me. So I don't see a hierarchy between
Yeah.
trees or humans or creatures. And I see us, to me, there's not, well, there's, humans and then animals and then plants. And then, it's everything to me, rocks, everything is sentient. Everything is alive. There's nothing that's dead. Even when something's dead, it's already busy composting to create new life. So in some ways, there is.
I think that perfect because it fits into again, back into that quantum physics anomaly that, humans can only see 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum of light, the optical range. So 99% of what's happening, we can't even see. So if I only could see 1% of an elephant, there's no way I'd know what I was looking at. And so it's the same with us. And so I think that's why it's so critical and important that we go for spirit and soul and vibration and frequency, because the third dimension is an illusion based on how
Mm,
much light can fill the picture. we can't even see it in the optical range until over 500,000 units of radiation has entered the picture. Then it becomes visible to us. I think that's just what a magic show that's happening for us right now. And we're involved and engaged and interacting with it. Like you said, there is no hierarchy. There's just this incredible engagement. And what is beautiful to me, I think, in my heart, makes my heart feel good, is to think that we're all part of one song. And so that's
Mm.
like, the universe actually translates into one song. And so we're kind of like, notes, a frequency, energy, vibrations within that song. And as long as we can keep dancing and keep singing and keep the music alive, then it remains a sweet dream. And then our children can prosper, our grandchildren, and so forth. And all of nature prospers when we join the song. Each tree has its own song. Each animal has their own song, and they all crave us to sing it to them. How would you feel if somebody walked up to you and just started singing your favorite song to you, your song to you?
Mm.
It's a love affair instantly.
Isn't
I
that
like
true?
it.
Isn't that true? Like when you're working with people, my first profession was working in mental health and then working in addictions for a number of years and then stepping out and working with, shamanic breath work and, you know, um, what I call shamanic psychospiritual work. Um, each one of those things, though, was just an evolution of what I was doing at another octave. And so I can imagine, like, where did you begin with all this time? What drew you? What happened for you? You're awakening around this that led you into this path to where you have this vast experience and wisdom to share with the world. You really do. When I think of someone as an elder who has so many gifts and wisdom to share, you're one of the people I think of in my consciousness and that I speak to people about. So I'm curious, what put you on this path? We're all born shamanic, whether we know it or not. We're all born spiritual, whether we know it or not. But what happened for you that you stepped fully into your dharma, into your purpose?
Uh, I'm not sure of the actual. I mean, it's kind of like looking for which grain of sand caused the avalanche. And so I just know that as a child, living in the forest of South Alabama, where we lived, my grandfather pretty much raised me, my grandfather and grandmother,
Hmm.
and he trained hunting dogs. And then he also had a program where he protected wolves. And so that was kind of like my childhood. And this is funny to say, but I actually went to a one-room schoolhouse, back in the late 40s, early 50s. And so, and I didn't participate very much. I'd get there and I'd jump out the window, you know what I mean? And I'd start running through the woods with these dogs, and just go into the creek. And I mean, I just fell in love with the dream of life in the woods. I mean, it was just, I was just fascinated by topsoil, you know what I mean? And things would just grow out of it. And just Mother Earth was just giving us all these things. And as a child, before I thought I knew what I was looking at, I was just looking at life,
Yes.
creation. I didn't think about all the other stuff that you learn over the years about that my grandfather used to say, every time you think about something long enough, you actually build a wall between you and it. You have to just keep your heart open. That's all you got to do. And so that was the beginning. And I think, with some interruptions here and there and distractions here and there, that love affair has been growing since I can remember. And so when somebody said, we're having problems over here, like, in 1978, Jimmy Carter signed the Native American Religious Freedom Act.
Yes.
Wasn't a law, it was just an act, but it was enough to open up the federal prison system to do ceremonies, with our Dene brothers and our Lakota brothers and all these folks that were incarcerated for one reason. Leonard Pelletier was in Leavenworth in 1978, and that was That was our story. So uh, when asked to come in and do ceremonies, I said, "You betcha." I mean, I couldn't think of anything more important to do. And then when
Yes.
I was asked to come, because I met, I mean, it's kind of like a connection. I met people in the prison that were from Botswana. I met people in the prison system that were from Peru and Ecuador, because natives are everywhere. You know what I mean? They're just indigenous people. They all feel like family, all indigenous people. They love the mother. They love the water. They love the, no matter where they're standing. And so one thing led to another. And all of a sudden I was doing ceremonies in the Amazon. I was doing ceremonies in Europe, various countries in Europe and India and Africa. And I liked Africa so much, I got a little place that they call these little places, they call them crawls. It was like a little hut, with a straw roof and such, and a little called Perfuri in the southern part of Zimbabwe near the Limpopo Valley. Not too, you can see Botswana from there. I mean, it's in that little tri area there. It's Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. And I love that place. I mean, I like going there and hanging out. And they got the Zulu people and the Bavinda people, and it's amazing to be in a village that's been there for 10,000 years. Talk
Mm.
about sustainability. I woke up one morning and then I heard this first morning I was there, a long time ago. First morning I was there, sun was just coming up, and I heard this thumping sound like a bass drum. And I thought maybe it was a ram pump because I thought I'd heard that sound somewhere. But then a few minutes later, there was another sound like, psh. I'm thinking, what is, and they were in sync, almost like tuning up a band. And then another sound came in, then another sound came in, and then I became incredibly curious. I put on my little garb and I went outside, and the village was shaped like a horseshoe. And right in the center was a well. And in front of each crawl, somebody was doing something to get ready for the day. Right in front of the one I was in, he had a big mortar and pestle, and he was making cornmeal. Boom,
Hmm.
boom, boom.
Yes.
And right next to him, this lady had a loom, and she was throwing that shuttle back and forth, and it was making that sound. And she was doing it in such a way is that it was rhythmic. And in front of, God be making clothes, God be checking, whatever he was doing in front of each cabin, or the lady was doing, it was like music. And the children were this is like sunup, right? The children are dancing around the well to the rhythm that the adults are making in front of their cabins, getting ready for the day. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
It
I
sounds like
looked,
it's
I
beautiful.
said, "You guys do this every day?" They said, "That's how we've been here 10,000 years. There's no end if you do it this way. If you continuously give back, she continuously gives." That's when I realized all the cities that I know of, thousands and thousands of cities that require 90% of the population of this earth to live on 10% of the land, all the cities are in life support. It's like they're like
Mm.
in ICU. We have to send them their food. We have to go in and clean up the mess. I mean, we have to tend to them. We're like hospice to the cities. The 10%
Hmm.
of us that live on the 90% of the land are taking care of all of those people, whether they realize it or not. If the trucks stop coming into some of these cities, millions and millions of people, there's probably only 2 to 3 days food supply in town for the millions and millions of people who live there. So it's a dire situation that's fragile. I mean, it's like crazily fragile. And so that's why sustainability and thrivability seem so far away. And I keep going back to that little village in Zimbabwe, where there's just get happy. You're just happy.
Hmm.
You're loving on the earth, loving on each other. So I saw if we could create a village where everybody felt like they had their needs met and everybody loved each other, what a sweet ride.
Mm.
Children would be happy, people could be vulnerable. And if you're vulnerable, healing can actually take place. It's difficult and challenging to heal outside of vulnerability.
That is
I
such a
noticed that.
powerful, powerful vision. I've only been to Africa once. I went to be with Linda Tucker and the White Lions there, and She took us to a village, and we were there, and we were working. The group got the opportunity. We just took a small group, about 14 people, so that each person would have a little time with the medicine woman in the village. We were there. And when we came out, they said that they wanted to fix dinner for us. And, I'm thinking, put something in a skillet, fry it up, whatever. And meanwhile, they're grinding the corn outside, to make the corn, the fritters that they were going to make, or the corn. Everything, they were just doing it right there around the fire, grinding, chopping, you know. At one point, I remember they handed me something deep fried, and I said, "Oh, this is good. What is it?" And they said, "Caterpillars, deep fried
Mm.
caterpillars." I was like, "Okay." But they were so gracious and kind to share what they had with us, and it just, I think everybody, well, I know everybody there that was sitting there felt so fortunate that we were able to have this experience with their generosity, with their beautiful open hearts and spirits and generosity.
Mm.
And, so just hearing you say that, it's been a while since I thought about it. It just brought me back to that memory. And it's like, I know that you've been around the world, and, I've been, I've gone to, to several places, to Peru and Egypt and Africa and different places around the world, and Bali, different people. And when you go to those places and you meet the different medicine people in those places, at least what I have found, that they all share one thing in common, and that is humility, loving kindness, open hearts, very little judgment about things. They might have an opinion about something, but there's a real willingness to open their hearts to welcome you in. However, I've also noticed that if they pick up that there's phoniness, or if they think there's, something else going on, then the secrets, if you will, or the mysteries, or the medicine, they just hold it a little bit closer until you leave. Those sort of things. They're still loving you, saying the energy, but they can sense when you're not there with a good heart. So, it's amazing that there's still people living, like you said, like this all around the world. I think about, especially with what's going on right now, Tom. Um, you know, um, there's a part of me that is reluctant to even bring up politics, but the whole world is political, and that sort of thing. But I think right now, people say, reaching out to me a lot. I'm sure they are to you, like, what's happening? What are we doing? How are we going to make it through really this huge shamanic initiation? Crisis means huge shamanic initiation. Are we going to make it through this? Are we okay? It kind of feels like the Civil War of brother and sister turning against each other, all these kinds of things. And I don't think it's the politicians that can solve this for us,
No.
and that maybe they've never have been able to. But if you were to offer some wisdom to people right now about how to carry themselves, what do people need to be doing right now? Do they need to be, filling their cabinets with rice and corn in bins? Do people need to go out and buy firearms? Do people need to be praying more? Do they need to be sweating more in the lodge? What would you say to someone who says, "I'm scared, I'm afraid, I don't know what's happening, I don't know who's telling the truth, I don't know who's lying," all those kinds of things? What's your message to people at this time?
I would say this. I would say, there's a lot a lot I could say to get to, but I'm just going to bullet point right in without a long introduction. Is that the world is perfect. There's just a lot of people having a really bad conversation. So what I think needs to happen right now, and what the elders that I've been talking, engaging with, is we need to alter the narrative. Language is the fabric of the culture. The things you talk about, you might as well just go ahead and point yourself in that direction, because it will become your destiny. So if you don't like the direction you're moving, change the conversation. And one of the
Mm,
things I've noticed in indigenous languages, especially, is there's really hardly any, if any, nefarious kinds of words: lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, plot, scheme. You know, names you can call. The worst you could say to somebody in an indigenous language is, "It seems you've been running from wisdom a long time, very successfully." But you
That's,
can't call them stupid. You know what I mean?
I
You
love
have to,
that. Could you
you
say
have to
that
be.
one more time? Could you say it one more time?
I said,
It
it
seems.
seems as though you've been running from wisdom for a long time, very successfully. And
I
then
love
it's kind of like telling them an observation, but respectfully. So if the conversation, if you remove judgment and criticisms and gossip and rumors from your conversation, no, let's say you've got writers up in your head that are telling you, writing down what they want you to say, right? Like you're in a movie and it's called The Story of Your Life, right? So, and so the writers are making your script as you go. What am I going to talk about today? You know, so you don't like what they say, so you fire them and you hire auditions, and finally you get a writer in there that you agree with and knows how to put words to the things you're feeling, right? So they won't have any judgments, they won't have any criticisms. It's not rumors and gossip, it's only things you've experienced, and you can only talk about dreams and ideas and visions and solutions. I don't want to talk about anything else but dreams, ideas, visions, and solutions. And I want to do it in such a way as that people feel that what I'm going to say is necessary, it's true, and it's kind. Most
Mm.
importantly of all, if you can tell them in a way that's kind, one of the things we need to do everywhere we go is immediately build agreement, you know, for where we are and who we are, what we're fixing to do, so that we don't just react, we actually respond. So we become spiritual first responders. And so
Oh, I
it's
love
it's
that. I love
it's a
that.
challenge.
Spiritual first responders.
It's a challenge because you're not always going to meet with people that are glad to see you unless you can somehow do it in a way that they agree with your presence. And one of the things I've noticed that is the biggest, simplest, most obvious connection that all humans share, that we all have this in common, a commonality rather than something that separates us. 8.3 billion people on this planet, and they all have a mother. I
Hmm.
think that's huge. I think that ought to make us all say, "Hey, how's your mama?" My
As your
mama's doing
mama.
pretty good. How's your mama? And the other critical situation is that we all have an expiration date. Even if we don't know when it is, we know this ain't going to last forever. So it's, if the metaphor was you're going to get on a crowded aircraft on a 20-hour flight, and the first thing you want to do is argue with everybody and mess up everybody's little seat, and, you know what I mean, and start categorizing everything. No, you don't want to do that. You want to blend. You want to harmonize. You want to create a good experience for the ride. Well, here we have 8 billion people riding on the rock, right?
Mm.
Rotating 1,000 miles an hour, going 68,000 miles an hour through the one song, following a dwarf star. Nobody has a clue where we're headed. I'm thinking that that ought to be enough inspiration. Couple that view of the bigger picture with how we are trapped on this planet through a mother on our way from the cradle to the grave. What are we going to do? I would say we reawaken the hearts to the ancient dreams and rhythms and migrations that were a way of life for all our people when we actually did walk lightly upon the earth. Why not? You know, it's all going to be over soon. Pick the low hanging fruit, sing, dance, hug one another, make a safe place for the babies, protect the water. You know, the native word for woman is life giver, the native word for man is life protector. So if that was
Mm.
actually the case on every spiritual level, we'd have dignity, respect, and honor. You know, honor the women and respect the men. It works for thousands and thousands of years. It's not a weakness; it's a strength. One of the things that my grandfather used to say was, you know, people thought we were a paternal tribe, and some people said we're a maternal tribe. Which is it? Is it the daddy or the mama? And so my grandfather said all the men would go down to the campfire and discuss what was going to happen. They'd all go back to their individual huts and tell their wives. And if their wives weren't happy, they'd go back and have another meeting until the wives were happy with the decision the men came up with. So the men honor the women and the women respect the men. Let them think they're making decisions. As long as they're keeping us happy, they're doing the right thing, because actually it's the grandmothers.
Uh-huh.
Once they become grandmothers, they're the ones who dictate all the laws and boundaries and what to do and what not to do within these nations. And I can't help but think if there was grandmothers in the White House right now, it would
It'd
be
be a
a
different
whole
story.
yeah, big different story. And everybody'd be happy. Everybody would have plenty of, I mean, everybody would be okay if the grandmothers were in charge.
Hmm.
And so that's what I think. And how we get there is we have to change the conversation. Everybody has, the Zulu call it an indaba. Indaba means a meaningful conversation about what really matters. And they do that in the morning and they do it again at night.
Do you know how to
And
spell that? I'm curious. Do you know how to spell that word?
yeah, it's INDABA,
Indaba.
indaba, a meaningful conversation about, and I learned it from an old Zulu priest named Credo Mutwa.
Oh
Listen
yeah.
to Zulu,
Yes.
Credo Mutwa. Yeah, he used to put me up when I'd go over there to Mahali. He lived near Mahalisburg in this little village. And he introduced me to some incredible people, Sangomas and Nagagas, it was amazing. And so, but that's how they do it. Be careful what you talk about. You have to think dreams, ideas, sweetness, a sweet dream. One of
Mm.
the things we did with our songs when we lived here in the Trail of Tears, and the people didn't know what to do with their sacred treasure. Well, when the Wasichu heard that word, they thought gold, right?
Hmm.
But that
Hmm.
wasn't the sacred treasure. The sacred treasure was more attuned to the songs we knew of all the trees and all the animals and the water songs and all these songs. But that was our treasure. Thousands and thousands of years we lived here singing these songs to the nature. So they didn't know what to do. So they, well, we'll put it in a cave, we'll bury it. And they say, no, they'll find it. They're killing everything. They destroy everything they touch. They're plowing the grounds down, killing all the animals. So finally, this one old grandmother said, oh, I got an idea. This is the only thing we can do. This is our best shot at protecting our sacred treasure. And they said, what's that? They said, we've all got to get together and come up with the sweetest dream we can and put everything we hold sacred in that dream. And those people who live in a nightmare will never have access to it. And if they
Hmm.
actually do stumble into a sweet dream, they're welcome to our stuff. And so that was the cure. So I think that's still relevant today. If we can work on our narrative, take criticisms and judgment out of the conversation, no more rumors, no more gossip. Don't talk about it if you haven't experienced it firsthand. You know what I mean? Don't you can have opinions like you said earlier, but not critiques. You can't critique something you've never experienced. It's like you might have read the book on swimming, you might have saw the movie, but if you have never jumped in the water, you don't know what we're talking about. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And so
I do.
is
I
that
do.
that's the way it's throughout life. And so I'm thinking if we do that and be kind, be necessary, be gentle, be honest, and keep going forward, building agreement. Think about a community where everyone has their needs met and they all care about each other. So what I this is so funny. I even put this into AI, right? I was on this AI platform and I said, don't you think it would be great if on the earth, if all the people became shepherds and stewards and caregivers and just forgot about this supply chain and all this economy and just started being shepherds again and stewards and caregivers? And AI came back at me and said, that's brilliant. And she told me all the reasons. I'm thinking it was a woman because she agreed with me. And so she says to me, she says, that would be this is, and she started telling me all the ways that would enhance the world and be thrivable and how the children would benefit, how everything would benefit, all nature would benefit if humans acted more like the Earth's immune system rather than a
Hmm.
virus and a parasite. We
Right.
actually started being acidophilus, you know what I mean, to the digestive process. And so, and what happened was I'm sitting there looking at several pages of brilliance. then she starts shooting other pages out about why it ain't never going to happen. But because of this, and because everybody is like this, and people are this, she said it's going to be like, you know, impossible practically. I mean, it could happen, but she said there has to be some. Now, it could be a beautiful transformation, like what we've been talking about, but it could be, you know, like in the past, an asteroid, an earthquake, a flood. Something has to happen to rock the boat, to take people back to that place where these things really matter out of necessity, not out of a choice. One of the lessons we had recently was that COVID. You remember when people were shutting themselves, and dolphins were swimming in the canals in Florence, in Milan or whatever, and the
Wild
elephants were
animals were going
playing
to
on
New
the
York
beach.
City. Yeah.
Skies were blue. Birds were singing and writing new bird songs. Everything was beautiful. And then, so you think, so that happened out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everybody was so afraid. The world actually prospered and benefited. It was like a very incredible healing globally for the earth, for people to, even if it was fear. So I said, well, why couldn't we do that once a week, once a day, once, you know, some amount of time, out of love? Because we
Mm.
love this place. We want to give her a break. So, and if we're waiting for somebody to come and save us, that's never going to happen. All the heroes are in our hearts. That's relates back to you, what you mentioned earlier. And that's why I think it's critical. Ceremonies, rituals, and rites of passage. That's the medicine right now. I mean, we are the medicine, but we bring the medicine to the ceremony, the ritual, the rite of passage, and do it every day. Because if we're going 68,000 miles an hour, you can't breathe in and out the same place twice. So that, it, for me, quantifies some exponential beauty and the preciousness of every moment that we're on this ride. If you actually felt what's happening. I mean, we'd all have G-force faces hanging onto oak trees, but gravity is one of our most incredible associates. It keeps us on the ground, keeps us, and they use it in poetry for all kinds of reasons, about making sure you have gravitas. Yeah. And so I think it's a journey, but I think one of the realizations I had, I worked for Universal Studios for a little while, making TV shows and stuff like that, you know, back in the 1700s. And and so one of the things I noticed was these people, so it was $1 million an episode, right, for this hour-long show, $30,000 a minute. People were screaming and pulling their hair and yelling at each other, and it's like and I thought, what if this was your life? And when it is, but I mean, what if this was your life and you actually thought, my life is worth $30,000 a minute? What am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to, who am I playing to? Who's my audience? Who's going to help me? Who's going, you know what I mean? When you saw all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people it took to make a small little show, and you think about our lives and how many friends and how many associates and how many people support you in your spiritual growth, and in your circle, and you think, well, that's what's critical. That's what's important. Where's my circle? Where's my community? Where's my tribe? You know what I mean? Who are the people that are supporting me, and who are the people that I want to support? And so it grows through the fabric of the conversation, of the language. You want a real tight fabric that fits everybody? The language would reflect that, and it would have to be necessary, true, and kind. Humor is a good thing as long as it doesn't have critical, as long as it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? So you don't want to serve all that kind of stuff. And then we could actually say that we here are the result of thousands of love stories that took place in a little piece of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. It's everything you've shared really touches me and really aligns with my own views, my own experiences, what wisdom I do have. It really is ignited just hearing you and everything that you're speaking into. I want to circle back around, or actually, I call it spiral because I do a lot of teaching about the spiral path.
Mm.
and that yes, there's the circle with the sacred circle, and yes, sometimes we need to be linear and phallic and move through something and push on through, but or not but and everything that's old is new again.
Mm.
And the spiral path is a big part of my own spiritual teaching with our classes and trainings and things that we do, asking people to reflect how their life keeps showing up in different octaves, pretty much the same, but at a different octave. And that real change doesn't happen until we move off of a circular path or a linear path, but onto a spiral path where we're willing to go around, experience what we've experienced again, but this time to make a new decision of some kind and to break on through to the other side. And when we come out, we create a new circle, a new energy within that spiral path. And there's some of the old, meaning the ancient wisdom, but there's also new dispensations that come through as well. There's
Mm.
inspirations that come from the future.
Mm.
Remember the Moody Blues, the future past. That rock group years ago. Our ancestors in the future past. Is that in this space-time continuum that you're speaking about, there is a past, there is a present, there is a future. But if we can get bigger and beyond it in some level and look back, we see that it's all happening simultaneously. We can see, that our past lives are not really our past lives. They're still affecting us here in the present. Our future lives of who we're becoming is embedded in our DNA. It already exists. It's already happened at some level. And then we have that point of consciousness where we happen to be in this moment. That what you're speaking about, what speaks to me, is that whatever we're focusing on is what we're creating in this moment. That we're creators, co-creators, and we're constantly, if the creator is our, if you will, is our truly our creator, if we've come from that energy, that there's a way in which we are also not only children of God, if you will, our creator, but we're also hopefully becoming adults of God. When I
Mm.
worked in treatment centers, we did a lot of work with people around adult children of alcoholics, ACOA, is what we called it, okay? And we would help people look at their lineages and why maybe they were having psychiatric problems or why they were having their own addictions and those kinds of things. And so they would take on the label, if you will, of ACOA to identify certain symptoms and those kinds of things. But if after a period of time, with a diagnosis, whether it's working in mental health or clinically or in the treatments or anything else, people can become addicted to their, if you will, their labels. And so I stepped out of that field, not because it wasn't doing good, it was doing great things for people, but it also, at some level, people kind of got stuck there, in my humble opinion. And
Mm.
so I encourage people that's just the beginning of the path of waking up, seeing your addictions, working through those things, that the bigger path, and that's an honorable one, and it took a lot to get there, usually a broken heart and lots of messing up in your life. But once you've moved into that space, that there's so much more that opens up beyond you. So in addition to being adult child of some dysfunctional family, perhaps, you're also an adult child of God or great mystery. So I say, instead of being ACOA, how about ACOG? Adult child of God, which means that if we're the children, how about if we become adults of God? How about we become adults with our Creator? And that we realize that we have been entrusted, the universe, the Creator, entrusted us with this Garden of Eden. So here's the keys to the kingdom. Have at it. It's kind of like giving your 16-year-old the keys to a car and saying, drive carefully, don't speed,
Mm.
and pray while they're gone out for the evening. So this is the part that I really am, feeling motivated to talk about with people. I don't know how much time left, but I just wanted to bring this message that part of my vision and dream, and having walked in the path of addiction, I found my own recovery, worked with other people, worked in mental health, dealt with my own mental health, finding the shamanic world, the medicine world, and continuing to grow and to keep bringing whatever I've found on the path that has helped me on the spiral path of transformation, to keep bringing it back to people. what I'm inspired about right now, and I know it can sound very woo-woo, new age, light polarized, but that's not where I am. I'm a shadow worker. I teach the shadow and family of origin and the stuff that's nitty gritty, as well as the beautiful transcendent energy, both and. But I think that we're at a place, I hope we're at, and I pray that we are, where instead of being children of God, that we can be grown-ups of God, that we can be adults of God or adults of the Creator, and that we can find our place the way the stones, the mountains, the rivers, the streams, the trees, and all the creatures, that we too can grow up, that we can find our place in the scheme of things now that is moves beyond corruption, moves beyond the lower consciousness, and find forgiveness for ourselves, for each other, and to step into this new energy. I'm calling it, just because I'm giving it, a label, something I can put on it, the Aquarian shaman, the people who are walking the spiral path of transformation, the ones who are
Mhm.
taking the best of the ancient wisdom with the best of the modern wisdom that's coming in, if you will, or techniques like breath work and other things that people are bringing in. Of course, that's not modern, that's ancient, but new ways of addressing and bringing it to the public and to the, not to the just to the people who can climb the Himalayas or find the yogis like Ram Dass did, but right here in North Carolina, or any place around the world. So the question I would like to ask you at this moment is, what is your vision at this time? You just shared about, about what people need to do and how we can do it. But do you have a vision at this time for people about the steps they can take at this moment to change
Yeah.
the narrative?
One
What
of the
is
things I
your Aquarian
is,
shaman vision for us?
well, I'd say, yeah, it's a vision. Yeah. Is, appreciating the fact that those of us who are here now are testimonials to a successful lineage of ancestors who somehow avoided the genocide that's been going on this planet for thousands of years. So in some ways, you could say we were chosen. And that's why the language and our behavior and our character are so important, because it helps form what we think of as a legacy.
Mm,
Because knowing this, you realize that we here now are the ancestors of the future. So it's kind of like we're ancestors in training.
yes.
We're going to be here maybe 80 years, maybe 100 years, but we're going to be back in the Horsehead Nebula for eternity. You know what I mean?
I
And
love
so
it. I love
we
it.
want to make
I
sure
love
we
it.
got the frequency. We want to make sure we got the right vibe. We want to make sure we got the right energy. That's why we're here. It's like an educational course to learn how to be aware that we are spirits having a human experience.
Mm,
And it's temporary, and we can thank our ancestors for it, and our children can thank us for it when we become ancestors. And that's why we really enjoy teaching ceremony and rituals and rites of passage to the children, so they can honor us in that way, that we honor our ancestors when we go in the lodge or when we go into these circles for ceremonies. I think that's a really good thing to focus on right now, that you're going to be here for a little while, and you're going to be an ancestor for the rest of whatever time is. I have no idea what it is, but it's eternity. I mean,
mm,
it never stops. No beginning,
mm.
no end. What a concept. And so, and I think it's actually a reality. So if I think really, if we focus on the language, like we said earlier, and then focus on the fact that how precious, is the fact that me and you are sitting here right now, 1 in 4 trillion. That's the odds that we actually could make it here. 1 in 4 trillion. 3,934,000,000 was against it, but we made it. I mean, if that's not precious, I don't know what is. And
So
so
we just
I
have a
think,
couple of minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I could listen to you all day, Tom. We just have like 2 minutes left or a minute and a half left.
well, I finished my little story anyway. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. Tom, your wisdom is profound, and I know it comes from deep experience. and walking this path for a really long time. Probably not only in this lifetime, but in your other dimensional selves from the past and the future. Probably in some other dimension, you're walking this path. Hopefully, it's on this planet in the future, but maybe in some other cosmic universe. So, I want to thank you for being that Aquarian shaman, for holding that light all these years, starting with your grandpa and your hunting dog. I can relate to that with my grandparents. And I look forward to spending some more real face-to-face time. We're not that far away from one another. I'd love for you to come up here, speak to some of our groups and things that come here. But again, thank you. And I know that everybody that watches this is watching, when they watch it, it's going to inspire them and remind
Can I
us how
just say one
precious.
thing real quick?
Yes, yes,
As of 6 months ago, I have 3 great grandbabies.
yeah.
I'm a great grandfather.
Yes, you are. You are. Hey, how about that? You are a great grandfather.
Literally. I mean, I never, I mean, I can remember thinking, I'm never going to make it to 30.
I remember that too. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so
Well,
glad
thank you
you
for
did.
this. You're beautiful, and this is a wonderful opportunity. I'm so happy we have had this time together.
Well, I feel like I've gotten to know you
Cyberspace.
so much better, and I've always
Likewise.
respected you, but now it's just off the charts. So thank you so much. Look forward
Likewise.
to seeing you in person soon, and thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
for those of you who've tuned in or who'll be watching this later, I just want you to know that you truly are, and I know that Tom will probably go, as my grandmother would say, pshaw, but you're with truly a master. Tom, his Blue Wolf, has been doing this forever, and I have a feeling that he always will be in every dimension that he's in. And we're so privileged to hear his wisdom, his experience, and his faith and his trust about the miraculousness of this planet, of human life, of all life, and where we're headed on this great spaceship called Earth. Thank you, Tom.
You.
This is Star Wolf, and you've been listening to the Experiential Aquarian Shaman broadcast. Transform yourself, transform the world. Join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio to awaken your inner Aquarian shaman. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to my channel and connect with me on social media at Linda Star Wolf. For more information about my offerings and trainings, visit shamanicbreathwork.org. Thank you for taking this special time to journey with me.